The wagon wheel splintered with a crack that echoed across the vast Texas plains like a gunshot. And Theresa Calloway knew she was in more trouble than she had ever been in her 22 years of life. The October sun of 1879 beat down mercilessly as her horse whinnied in distress, the wagon listing violently to one side. Theresa grabbed the reins with white-knuckled hands, managing to bring the animal to a halt before the whole contraption toppled over completely. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she climbed down, her traveling dress catching on the rough wooden seat. The wheel lay broken behind her, pieces of wood scattered across the dirt trail like the fragments of her carefully laid plans. She was 3 days out from Newton, Kansas, heading south toward Austin with nothing but her late aunt's belongings and a determination to start fresh after everything that had happened back home. The betrayal still stung like an open wound. Daniel Patterson had courted her for 8 months, speaking pretty words about love and commitment, about building a life together. Then she had discovered him in the parlor of her boarding house with Miss Alina Wright, the banker's daughter, his hand around her waist and his lips on her neck. When Theresa had confronted him, he had not even had the decency to look ashamed. Instead, he had laughed, telling her she had been foolish to think a man of his standing would marry a woman with no family connections and a modest inheritance. That had been 3 months ago, and the wound was still fresh enough to make her chest tighten with humiliation and anger. She had decided then that men were not worth the heartache, that their words were empty as the wind, and that she would make her own way in the world without needing anyone. Now, standing alone on a dusty trail in the middle of nowhere, that resolution felt less empowering and more terrifying. She looked around at the endless expanse of golden prairie grass, the distant line of trees that marked a creek bed, and the empty horizon in every direction. Not a soul in sight. Her nearest supplies were in her wagon, but the broken wheel meant she was going nowhere without help. Theresa refused to cry. She had shed enough tears over Daniel Patterson, and she would not waste more on this situation. She was resourceful. She could figure this out. She walked around the wagon, assessing the damage, though she knew next to nothing about wagon repair. The wheel had split clean through 2 spokes, and the iron rim had bent. Even to her untrained eye, it looked beyond simple fixing. She retrieved her canteen and took a careful sip of water, rationing what she had left. Then she dug out the map from her bag, studying the route. According to her calculations, she was somewhere between Newton and the small settlement of Caldwell. She had passed a homestead yesterday morning, but that was hours of walking back the way she had come. Going forward, she could not be sure how far the next town might be. The sound of hoofbeats made her freeze. Out here, alone, a woman had to be cautious. She reached into the wagon and pulled out the small pistol her late father had given her, checking that it was loaded. She had never fired it at anything but tin cans, but she would if she had to. A lone rider appeared over the rise to the east, his horse moving at an easy canter. As he drew closer, Theresa could make out more details. He wore typical cowboy attire, dusty trail clothes, a worn hat that had seen better days, and a gun belt slung low on his hips. He sat his horse with the easy confidence of a man who had spent most of his life in the saddle. Theresa squared her shoulders and kept the pistol visible, but not raised. She would not be taken advantage of again by any man. The rider slowed as he approached, raising one hand in a peaceful gesture. As he came within calling distance, he brought his horse to a stop about 20 feet away, respecting her space in a way that surprised her. "Madam," he called out, his voice deep and carrying easily across the distance. "Looks like you have got some trouble there. Name is Garrett Coleman. I have a ranch about 5 miles east of here. Can I offer some assistance?" Theresa studied him carefully. He appeared to be in his mid-20s, with sun-bronzed skin and dark hair that curled slightly at the edges beneath his hat. His face was honest-looking, with strong features and green eyes that seemed concerned rather than predatory. But Daniel had seemed trustworthy too at first. "I appreciate the offer, Mr. Coleman, but I can manage," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. He glanced at her broken wheel, then back at her, and something that might have been respect flickered in his expression. "No disrespect intended, madam, but that wheel is not going to fix itself, and the sun will be setting in about 4 hours. You do not want to be stranded out here after dark. Coyotes get bold at night, and there have been reports of a mountain lion in the area." Theresa felt her resolve waver. Everything he said was true, and her pride would not keep her safe or mobile. But the thought of trusting a strange man after what Daniel had done made her stomach clench. "How do I know you are who you say you are?" she asked, keeping her chin up. Garrett Coleman slowly reached into his vest pocket, moving deliberately so as not to alarm her, and pulled out a piece of paper. He urged his horse forward a few steps and held it out. Theresa approached cautiously and took it. It was a bill of sale for cattle, addressed to Garrett Coleman of the Circle C Ranch, dated just 2 weeks prior. "I was in Newton buying supplies and checking on a cattle shipment," he explained. "I am heading home now. Your wagon broke at an unfortunate spot. There is nothing for miles in any direction except my ranch. I give you my word that I mean you no harm. I was raised to help folks in trouble, especially women." Theresa wanted to believe him. More than that, she needed to believe that not all men were like Daniel, that kindness still existed in the world. But trust did not come easily anymore. "I can fix that wheel," Garrett continued when she did not respond immediately. "I have tools in my saddlebag, and there is enough salvageable wood here to make a temporary repair that will get you to the next town. If you would feel more comfortable, you can keep that pistol pointed at me the whole time I work. I just cannot ride away knowing I left a woman stranded out here." There was something in his tone, a genuine earnestness that made her decision for her. "All right," she said finally, "but I will be watching." A slight smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "I would expect nothing less, madam. Might I know your name?" "Theresa Calloway." "Pleased to meet you, Miss Calloway, though I wish it were under better circumstances." He dismounted with fluid grace and tied his horse to the back of her wagon. Then he began unpacking tools from his saddlebag, laying them out with methodical care. A hammer, nails, a small saw, some leather straps, and a piece of sturdy rope. He walked around the wagon, examining the damage as Theresa had done, but with the practiced eye of someone who actually knew what he was looking at. "The axle is solid, which is good news," he said, crouching down to get a better look. "The wheel took the brunt of it. I can reinforce what is left with the intact pieces from your spare if you have got one." "I do," Theresa said. "It is strapped underneath." Garrett retrieved the spare wheel, and Theresa watched as he began to work. His movements were confident and efficient, the actions of a man who had fixed countless things over the years. He did not seem to mind the silence, focusing on his task with steady concentration. Despite herself, Theresa found her guard lowering slightly. He had positioned himself so that she could see everything he was doing, never making any sudden movements, never trying to get closer to her than necessary. He was respecting her boundaries in a way that Daniel never had. "Where are you headed?" Garrett asked after a while, his tone conversational rather than prying. "Austin," Theresa replied. "I have family there." It was a lie, but a safe one. She did not need this stranger knowing she was completely alone in the world. "That is quite a journey for a woman traveling solo. I can take care of myself." "I do not doubt it," he said, glancing up at her with those steady green eyes. Any woman brave enough to make that trip alone has to have steel in her spine. Theresa did not know how to respond to that. It sounded like a compliment, but she was wary of compliments. Daniel had showered her with them, and they had all been empty. "You do not have to make conversation," she said. "I am grateful for the help with the wheel, but that does not mean we need to be friends." Garrett nodded slowly. "Fair enough. I will just focus on the work then." He fell silent, and Theresa immediately felt guilty for her sharp tone. He was helping her after all, and he had been nothing but respectful. But she could not seem to stop herself from keeping walls up, from expecting the worst. As he worked, the sun moved across the sky, and Theresa found herself studying him more carefully. His hands were work-roughened and scarred, the hands of a man who labored for his living. He had rolled up his sleeves, revealing muscular forearms tanned dark by the sun. There was a faded scar running along his left arm, jagged and old. A story there, no doubt. "You have got good supplies," Garrett commented, nodding toward her wagon. "Well packed, too. Someone taught you how to travel smart." "My father was a freight driver," Theresa said before she could stop herself. "He died 5 years ago, but he made sure I knew the basics of trail travel." "I am sorry about your father," Garrett said quietly. "Losing family is hard." Something in his voice suggested he spoke from experience, and Theresa found herself curious despite her determination to remain distant. "You sound like you understand." "Lost both my parents when I was 19, he said, fitting a piece of wood into place and hammering a nail through it. "Cholera outbreak swept through the area. Took a lot of good people. I have been running the ranch on my own ever since." "That must have been difficult," Theresa said, and she meant it. It was. But difficulty either breaks you or makes you stronger. "I figured I owed it to them to make something of the land they left me." They lapsed into silence again, but it felt less strained now. Theresa watched as Garrett reinforced the wheel with careful precision, lashing the new spokes into place with leather strips and securing everything with rope. His earlier confidence had not been empty boasting. He clearly knew exactly what he was doing. "You are good at this," she observed. "A ranch teaches you to be good at fixing things. Cannot afford to ride into town every time something breaks. You learn to make do with what you have got and solve problems yourself." "That sounds lonely." He looked up at her, and for a moment their eyes met. "It can be," he admitted, "but lonely is better than being surrounded by people you cannot trust." The words resonated with Theresa more than she wanted to admit. That is a cynical way of looking at things. "Maybe," Garrett said, returning his attention to the wheel. "Or maybe it is just realistic. People tend to disappoint you. You sound like you have been disappointed. Have not we all?" He tested the wheel, making sure it was secure. "But I reckon we keep hoping anyway. Otherwise, what is the point?" Theresa did not have an answer to that. She had stopped hoping 3 months ago when she found Daniel with a leaner. She had decided then that hoping was for fools, that protecting yourself was smarter than opening yourself up to pain. Garrett stood and wiped his hands on his trousers. "That should hold you to the next town at least, maybe longer if you take it easy. Do not go racing across the prairie and check the wheel every few miles to make sure nothing has come loose." "How much do I owe you?" Theresa asked, reaching for the small purse she kept in her pocket. He held up a hand. "Nothing. I did not help you for money. I insist on paying you for your time and expertise." "And I insist on refusing," Garrett said firmly. "Call it frontier hospitality. Out here, we help each other because we might be the ones needing help next time." Theresa hesitated, uncomfortable with being in debt to anyone, especially a man. "Then how can I repay you?" "You do not need to. But if it makes you feel better, maybe someday when you see someone else in trouble, you can stop and help them." Pass it forward instead of paying it back. The simplicity and kindness of his philosophy made her throat tighten unexpectedly. Daniel would never have helped anyone without calculating what he could gain from it. This cowboy had spent over an hour fixing her wagon in the hot sun and wanted nothing in return. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Truly, I was wrong to be so suspicious of you." "No, you were not," Garrett said, gathering his tools. "A woman alone has every right to be cautious. The world is not always kind, especially to women traveling without protection. Your suspicion probably keeps you safe, or it keeps me isolated and bitter." The words came out before she could stop them, revealing more than she had intended. Garrett paused in his packing, studying her face with an intensity that made her want to look away. "Somebody hurt you," he said. "It was not a question. That is none of your business." "You are right, it is not. But I will say this. Whoever he was a fool, and not all men are like him." "How do you know there was a man involved?" "Because women do not get that particular look in their eyes unless a man put it there," Garrett said with surprising gentleness. "And because I recognize it. I had a woman break my trust once too. Made me question everything about people for a good long while." Theresa found herself wanting to know more about him, but she resisted. Curiosity led to conversation, conversation led to connection, and connection led to pain. She had learned that lesson well. "Well, thank you again for your help, Mr. Coleman. I should get moving before I lose more daylight." "Wait," Garrett said. He walked to his horse and retrieved a canteen from his saddle. "Take this. You are running low on water and the next creek is about 10 miles south. That wheel might hold, but pushing your luck is not smart. I cannot take your water. I am 5 miles from home with a well. You are days from anywhere. Take it." He held out the canteen, and after a moment, Theresa accepted it. Their fingers brushed briefly, and she was surprised by the warmth of his skin, the calluses that spoke of hard work. "Be careful out there," Garrett said, swinging up into his saddle. "If that wheel gives out again before you reach help, you are welcome to head east. My ranch is not hard to find. Just follow the creek bed until you see a stand of cottonwood trees. The house is just beyond that." "I will be fine," Theresa said, but she filed the information away just in case. Garrett tipped his hat to her. "I hope you find what you are looking for in Austin, Miss Calloway. Safe travels." He turned his horse and rode away, and Theresa watched him go until he was just a speck on the horizon. Then she climbed back onto her wagon, checked that everything was secure, and urged her horse forward. The wheel held, rolling smoothly despite the makeshift repairs. As she traveled, she found herself thinking about Garrett Coleman. He had defied every expectation she had built up about men over the past few months. He had been kind without expecting anything in return, helpful without being condescending, respectful without being distant. He had fixed her wheel and asked for nothing, not even gratitude. Maybe not all men were like Daniel. Maybe she had let one bad experience color her view of an entire gender. But even as the thought formed, she pushed it away. It was safer to keep her walls up, safer to trust no one but herself. One kind cowboy did not erase months of heartbreak. The sun was setting when the wheel gave out again. Theresa felt it wobble first, a concerning shift in the wagon's movement. She slowed immediately, remembering Garrett's instructions to check it regularly, but she had been lost in thought and had gone farther than she should have without stopping. The wheel wobbled again, more violently this time, and then with a sickening crack, it collapsed completely. The wagon lurched, and Theresa barely managed to keep control as her horse reared in alarm. She brought the animal to a stop and sat there for a long moment, fighting down panic. The repaired wheel had not just loosened. It had broken again, worse than before. There would be no fixing it this time, not without proper tools and wood and expertise she did not possess. She was stranded, truly stranded, and the sun was sinking fast toward the horizon. Theresa climbed down and assessed the situation. East, Garrett had said. 5 miles to his ranch, following the creek bed to a stand of cottonwood trees. West and south, there was nothing she knew of for at least a full day's travel, maybe more. North would take her back toward Newton, but that was 3 days of hard walking, and she did not have 3 days of supplies. Pride warred with practicality. She did not want to show up at Garrett Coleman's ranch like some damsel in distress, proving she could not take care of herself after all. But the alternative was spending the night out here, exposed and vulnerable, and possibly dying of thirst before she reached help. Practicality won. She unhitched her horse, a gentle mare named Daisy, and grabbed her most essential belongings. A satchel with clothes, her father's pistol, what little money she had, and some dried food. Everything else would have to stay with the wagon. She could come back for it later, assuming it was still there. The creek bed Garrett had mentioned was not hard to find. She followed it east as the last light faded from the sky, leading Daisy by the reins. The stars emerged one by one, brilliant and cold, and the temperature dropped rapidly now that the sun was gone. Theresa wrapped her shawl tighter around her shoulders and kept walking. She had been traveling for what felt like hours, though it was probably less than one, when she saw the glow of lamplight in the distance. The cottonwood trees rose like dark sentinels against the night sky, and beyond them, the warm yellow light of a house beckoned like a beacon. Theresa approached cautiously, her pride stinging with every step. But as she drew closer and could make out the details of the ranch, a small cabin with a barn and corral, smoke rising from the chimney, she felt relief wash over her exhaustion. Before she could knock, the door opened. Garrett Coleman stood framed in the doorway, lamplight behind him, and his expression shifted from surprise to concern when he saw her. "Miss Calloway, what happened?" "The wheel broke again," Theresa said, hating how small her voice sounded. "I did not know where else to go." "You did the right thing coming here," Garrett said immediately. He stepped out and took Daisy's reins from her. "Let me take care of your horse. You get inside and warm up. You look half frozen." Theresa wanted to protest that she could handle her own horse, but the truth was she was exhausted, cold, and on the verge of tears. She nodded and went inside while Garrett led Daisy toward the barn. The interior of the cabin was simple but well maintained. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, with a cheerful fire crackling away. A rough-hewn table and chairs sat in the center of the room, and a narrow bed occupied one corner. Shelves lined the walls, filled with books, tools, and various supplies. It was the home of a man who lived alone but took pride in his space. Theresa sank into one of the chairs near the fire, letting the warmth seep into her bones. A few minutes later, Garrett returned, stamping his boots clean before entering. "Your horse is settled in the barn with feed and water," he said. "She will be comfortable for the night." "Thank you," Theresa said. "I am sorry to impose on you like this. I should have checked the wheel more carefully." "You have nothing to apologize for," Garrett said firmly. He went to the stove in the corner and poured something from a pot into a mug. "Here, drink this. It is just coffee, but it will warm you up." Theresa accepted the mug gratefully, wrapping her cold hands around it. The coffee was strong and hot, exactly what she needed. Garrett pulled out another chair and sat down across from her, far enough away to be respectful but close enough to talk easily. "What happened to the wheel?" "It just gave out. I was so focused on putting distance between myself and that spot that I did not check it as often as I should have. By the time I noticed it wobbling, it was too late. It happens. Those makeshift repairs do not always hold as long as you would hope. I should have insisted you come here first to let me do a proper job. You could not have known it would break again so soon. Still, I feel responsible." "Well, do not. I made my own choices." Theresa took a sip of coffee, letting the warmth spread through her. "I cannot keep the wagon where it is, can I? We will go retrieve it in the morning with my horse and a proper wheel from my spare parts. It is not safe to leave it out there too long. Scavengers, both animal and human, have a way of finding unattended property. I do not want to be more of a burden." "You are not a burden," Garrett said, and the sincerity in his voice made her look up at him. "You are someone who needs help. There is a difference." "I am not used to accepting help. I can tell, but maybe it is time to learn that accepting help does not make you weak. It just makes you human." Theresa did not know what to say to that. She drank more coffee and stared into the fire, feeling the events of the day catching up with her. The fear when the wheel first broke, the uncertainty of dealing with a stranger, the relief when Garrett had proven himself trustworthy, and then the despair when it had broken again. It had been an exhausting emotional journey, and she was drained. "You can have the bed," Garrett said, as if reading her mind. "I will sleep in the barn." "Absolutely not. This is your home. I will sleep in the barn." "I am not letting a guest sleep in the barn, especially not a lady." "I am not a lady. I am just a woman with a broken wagon." "You are a lady and you will sleep in the bed," Garrett said with finality. "I have spent plenty of nights in the barn. It is not a hardship." Theresa wanted to argue, but she was too tired. "Fine, but I do not like it." "Duly noted," Garrett said with a small smile. "Are you hungry?" "I have got some stew left from dinner. It is not fancy, but it is hot and filling." "I do not want to eat your food." "Miss Calloway, with all due respect, you need to stop being so stubborn and let me help you. You are hungry, exhausted, and you have had a terrible day. Let me do this." The gentleness in his reprimand made her defenses crumble a little more. "All right, thank you." He served her a bowl of stew, and it was simple but good, rich with meat and vegetables. Theresa ate slowly, savoring every bite, and realized she had not eaten since early morning. "This is excellent," she said. "Do not let anyone hear you say that, or my reputation as a mediocre cook will be ruined," Garrett said with a hint of humor. Despite everything, Theresa found herself smiling. "Your secret is safe with me." They ate in comfortable silence for a while, and Theresa found herself relaxing more than she had in months. There was something peaceful about this cabin, about Garrett's steady presence. He did not push for conversation, did not pry into her business, did not make her feel like she owed him anything beyond basic courtesy. "Can I ask you something?" Theresa said finally. "Of course." "Why are you being so kind to me? You do not know me. I could be anyone." Garrett set down his spoon and considered the question carefully. "I guess because I know what it is like to be alone and struggling. After my parents died, I had neighbors who could have helped me, could have made those first few years easier. Most of them did not. They figured I was young and capable, that I would be fine on my own. And I was fine eventually, but it was harder than it needed to be. I swore then that if I ever had the chance to make someone else's struggle a little easier, I would take it. That is remarkably selfless." "No, it is just being decent. Or it should be anyway. Somewhere along the way, we started thinking that every interaction has to benefit us somehow, that kindness needs a reason beyond just being the right thing to do. I do not agree with that." Theresa thought about Daniel, about how every word and action had been calculated to serve his own interests. Garrett was right. Somewhere along the way, she had started to believe that everyone operated that way, that genuine kindness did not exist. "I should tell you something," she said quietly. "I lied earlier when I said I had family in Austin. I do not have family anywhere. My aunt died 2 months ago and she was the last. I am traveling to Austin because I heard there were opportunities there for women, teaching positions and such. I thought I could start over somewhere no one knew me. Why did you feel the need to lie? Because admitting I am completely alone makes me vulnerable, and I cannot afford to be vulnerable. What happened to you? Garrett asked gently. You do not have to tell me if you do not want to, but it might help to talk about it. Theresa hesitated. She had not spoken about Daniel to anyone, had kept the pain and humiliation locked inside like a festering wound. But something about Garrett made her want to share it, to let it out and see if doing so would ease the burden. There was a man, she said finally. His name was Daniel Patterson. We courted for 8 months. He said all the right things, made all the right promises. I thought he was going to propose. Then I found him with another woman. When I confronted him, he told me I had been foolish to think he was serious about me. He said I had no family connections, no significant money, nothing to offer a man like him. He had just been passing time with me until someone better came along. What a worthless piece of trash, Garrett said, and the anger in his voice surprised her. I am sorry. That was crude. But any man who treats a woman that way is not worthy of being called a man. He made me feel worthless, Theresa admitted, and saying it out loud made tears sting her eyes. Like I was not good enough, like I never would be. I know logically that he was wrong, that his cruelty says more about him than it does about me. But knowing it and believing it are two different things. He was wrong, Garrett said firmly. And you are not worthless. You are brave and strong and resourceful. You are making your way across the frontier alone, determined to build a new life. That takes courage most people do not have. You do not know me well enough to say that. I know enough. I see how you carry yourself, how you do not give up even when things go wrong. I see that you are scared, but you keep going anyway. That is the definition of courage. Theresa wiped at her eyes, frustrated by the tears. I did not mean to unload all of this on you. You fixed my wheel. You did not sign up for my emotional baggage too. Sometimes the most important repairs are not the ones you can see, Garrett said. Your wagon is not the only thing that got broken, and maybe I cannot fix what Daniel did to your faith in people, but I can at least show you that not everyone is like him. Why does it matter to you? Garrett was quiet for a moment, his green eyes reflecting the firelight. Because I recognize a kindred spirit. You are not the only one who got their trust shattered. A few years back, there was a woman named Sarah Mitchell. She was new to the area, and I was young and stupid enough to fall hard and fast. We talked about getting married, about building a life together on this ranch. Then I found out she had been seeing another man the whole time, a rancher with more land and more money. She chose him and did not even bother to tell me herself. I heard about their engagement from someone in town. I am sorry. That must have been awful. It was. But it taught me something. It taught me that who people are when they think no one is watching is their true character. Sarah showed me hers and Daniel showed you his. The trick is not letting their failures make us stop believing in everyone else. That is easier said than done. I did not say it was easy, but the alternative is spending the rest of your life closed off and alone, and that is not really living. They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling and the night settling around them. Theresa felt something shifting inside her, like ice beginning to thaw. Garrett had been nothing but kind and honest with her. He had shared his own pain without trying to diminish hers, had offered help without expecting anything in return. Maybe, just maybe, there were still good people in the world. Maybe Daniel had been the exception rather than the rule. Thank you, Theresa said softly, for everything. For fixing my wheel, for letting me stay here, for listening. It means more than you know. You are welcome, Garrett said. Now you should get some rest. Morning comes early on a ranch and we have got work to do tomorrow. He stood and gathered his bedroll from a trunk in the corner. There is a bolt on the inside of the door if it would make you feel safer. I will be in the barn if you need anything, but you will not be disturbed." "I trust you," Theresa said, and realized she meant it. Something flickered in Garrett's eyes, pleasure or surprise or maybe relief. "I am glad." "Sleep well, Miss Calloway." He left, closing the door quietly behind him, and Theresa was alone in the cabin. She bolted the door, not because she did not trust Garrett, but because old habits were hard to break. Then she changed into her nightgown, washed her face in the basin by the window, and climbed into the bed. It smelled like leather and wood smoke and something distinctly masculine. It should have made her uncomfortable, sleeping in a strange man's bed, but instead she felt safe. She pulled the quilt up to her chin and let her exhausted body relax into the mattress. For the first time in 3 months, Theresa Calloway fell asleep without crying. She woke to the smell of coffee and bacon and the soft light of dawn filtering through the window. For a moment she was disoriented, not recognizing her surroundings. Then memory returned and she sat up quickly, smoothing her hair and trying to compose herself. The cabin door opened and Garrett entered with a careful knock first. "Morning. I hope I did not wake you. I have got breakfast ready if you are hungry." "You did not have to do that. I was making breakfast anyway. It is not any extra trouble to make enough for 2. Theresa climbed out of bed, suddenly self-conscious in her nightgown with her hair loose and tangled from sleep. "Let me get dressed first." "Take your time. I will be outside." He left again, giving her privacy, and Theresa quickly dressed in her traveling clothes, braiding her hair and pinning it up. When she emerged from the cabin, she found Garrett sitting on the porch steps with 2 plates of food. "It is a nice morning," he said, handing her a plate. Seemed ashamed to waste it inside. Theresa sat beside him, careful to maintain a respectable distance, and looked out at the ranch. In the daylight, she could see it was modest but well-maintained. The barn was sturdy, the corral well-fenced, and there were cattle visible in the distance, grazing peacefully. It was not a grand spread, but it was clearly the result of hard work and dedication. "You have built something good here," she observed. "I am trying. It is slow going on your own, but I am making progress. Another few years and I should be able to hire some help, maybe expand the herd." "Do you ever get lonely?" "Sometimes," Garrett admitted. "But I keep busy enough that I do not dwell on it. What about you? Did you have friends in Newton?" "A few, but not close ones. After what happened with Daniel, I did not feel like I could show my face around town anymore. Everyone knew, everyone was talking about it. Starting fresh somewhere new seemed like the best option. Running away does not solve the problem, though. It just moves it to a new location. Maybe, or maybe it gives you the space to heal without constant reminders of what hurt you." "That is fair," Garrett said. "I guess there is a difference between running away and making a strategic retreat." They ate in companionable silence, and Theresa found herself studying Garrett's profile. He had a strong jaw, slightly stubbled with morning beard growth, and his green eyes were clear and thoughtful. There was something about him that made her feel calm, like she could breathe freely for the first time in months. "What are you thinking about?" Garrett asked, catching her staring. "Nothing," Theresa said quickly, looking away. "Just wondering what the plan is for today." "We will ride out and retrieve your wagon. I've got a spare wheel that should fit, and we will do a proper repair this time. Then I will escort you to Caldwell. It is about 15 miles south of here, and they have got a general store and a boarding house. You can rest there and decide what you want to do next. You do not have to escort me, I know, but I want to make sure you get there safely. Consider it finishing what I started." Theresa wanted to protest, but the truth was she appreciated his help more than she wanted to admit. "Thank you." After breakfast, they prepared for the journey. Garrett saddled 2 horses, his own and a gentle gelding he said was good for riding double with the wagon. Theresa packed her belongings, making sure she had everything she would need, and tried not to think about how much she was going to miss this peaceful ranch and its kind owner. The ride to her wagon took less time than her walk in the dark had seemed to take. They found it exactly where she had left it, thankfully untouched by scavengers. Garrett set to work immediately, removing the broken wheel and fitting the spare into place. This time, he took his time, using proper tools and techniques to ensure it would hold. Theresa watched him work, admiring the competence and care he put into even this simple task. He did not cut corners or rush, making sure everything was secure before declaring it done. "That should hold you to California and back," he said finally, testing the wheel one last time. "But you still should not push too hard. Check it regularly, and if anything feels off, stop immediately." "I will. I promise." They hitched Daisy back to the wagon, and Theresa climbed onto the seat. Garrett mounted his horse, and together they set off toward Caldwell. The journey was pleasant, the weather clear and mild, and they talked easily as they traveled. Garrett told her about his ranch, about the challenges of building something from nothing, about the satisfaction of seeing cattle thrive and land improve. Theresa found herself sharing more about her life too, about her childhood, her parents, the dreams she had once had before they had been tarnished by betrayal. "What do you want now?" Garrett asked. "If you could have anything, what would your life look like?" Theresa considered the question carefully. "I want independence. I want to know that I can take care of myself, that I do not need anyone else to survive. But more than that, I want peace. I want to wake up without this weight on my chest, without feeling like I am not good enough. I want to be able to trust again, to open my heart without being terrified of getting it broken. Those are good goals, hard ones but good ones. What about you? What do you want?" "I want to make this ranch into something my parents would be proud of. I want to prove that their faith in me was not misplaced. And I want companionship. Not just anyone, but someone who sees me for who I am and chooses me anyway. Someone who wants to build something together instead of just taking what they can get." That sounds lonely, waiting for something that specific. Maybe, but settling for less sounds worse. They reached Caldwell in the early afternoon. It was a small settlement, just a handful of buildings clustered around a dusty main street, but it had the essentials. A general store, a saloon, a church, and a boarding house that looked reasonably clean. Garrett helped Theresa arrange for a room at the boarding house and made sure her wagon was secured in the livery. Then they stood awkwardly on the street, and Theresa realized she did not want to say goodbye. "I should let you get back to your ranch," she said. "You have already done so much for me." "I do not mind," Garrett said. "But you are right, I should head back before it gets too late. Will you be all right here?" "I will be fine. This is what I wanted, right? Independence." "Independence and isolation are not the same thing. I know. But I need to figure out how to stand on my own before I can think about letting anyone else in." Garrett nodded slowly. "I understand, but for what it is worth, I hope you find what you are looking for in Austin. And I hope you find a way to trust again. You deserve happiness, Theresa." The use of her first name spoken with such warmth made her chest tighten. "So do you, Garrett." He tipped his hat to her, a gesture that felt more intimate than it should have. "Safe travels, Miss Calloway. If you ever find yourself back in this area, you are always welcome at the Circle C. Thank you for everything." He mounted his horse and rode away, and Theresa watched until he disappeared from view. Then she turned and went into the boarding house, feeling more alone than she had since Daniel's betrayal. The room was small but adequate, with a narrow bed, a washstand, and a window that looked out on the street. Theresa unpacked her few belongings and tried to figure out what to do next. She had enough money to stay here for a week, maybe 2 if she was careful. She could look for work, see if anyone needed help with laundry or cooking or teaching. Or she could continue on to Austin as planned, pursue those opportunities she had heard about. But as she sat on the bed and looked around the empty room, she realized she did not want to go to Austin. She did not want to keep running, keep searching for something she could not even name. What she wanted was back at that modest ranch, in the form of a green-eyed cowboy who had shown her that kindness still existed. She was falling for Garrett Coleman. Or maybe she had already fallen, somewhere between him fixing her wheel and him sharing his painful past, between his respectful distance and his genuine concern. He had not pushed or pressured or expected anything from her. He had just been himself, honest and kind and good. And she had let him ride away because she was too scared to admit she wanted him to stay. Theresa spent 3 miserable days in Caldwell, trying to convince herself that continuing on to Austin was the right choice. She found a temporary job helping at the general store, stocking shelves and waiting on customers, and she saved every penny she earned. She made polite conversation with the other boarders and attended church on Sunday, trying to integrate herself into the community, but her heart was not in it. Every evening, she found herself standing at the window, looking north toward where she knew Garrett's ranch lay, wondering what he was doing, if he was thinking about her the way she was thinking about him. On the 4th day, an older woman came into the store, a ranch wife named Martha who was picking up supplies. She was friendly and chatty, and somehow the conversation turned to local ranchers. "That Garrett Coleman is such a good man," Martha said, shaking her head admiringly. "Lost both his parents when he was barely more than a boy, and he kept that ranch going through sheer determination. Never complains, always willing to help a neighbor. I keep telling him he needs to find himself a good woman and settle down, but he says he has not met the right one yet." "He seems very dedicated to his work," Theresa said carefully. "Oh, he is, but dedication does not keep you warm at night if you know what I mean. That boy needs someone to share his life with, someone who appreciates what he has built and wants to be part of it. But he is particular, which I suppose is good. Better to be alone than with the wrong person." Martha's words echoed in Theresa's head long after the woman left. Better to be alone than with the wrong person. But what if you found the right person and were too scared to take the chance? That night, Theresa made her decision. She could keep running, keep protecting her heart behind walls of fear and mistrust. Or she could take a risk, could open herself up to the possibility that Garrett was everything he seemed to be, that what she felt for him was worth pursuing. The next morning, she quit her job at the store, paid for her room through the end of the week, and hitched Daisy to her wagon. Then she headed north, toward the Circle C ranch, toward Garrett, toward the terrifying and exhilarating possibility of letting someone in again. The journey took most of the day, and Theresa second-guessed herself the entire way. What if he did not feel the same way? What if he had only been kind because that was his nature, not because he had any special feelings for her? What if she showed up and made a fool of herself, proving that she had learned nothing from Daniel's rejection? But she kept going, because the alternative was spending the rest of her life wondering what if. She reached the ranch in the late afternoon, and her heart hammered in her chest as she drove the wagon up to the house. Garrett emerged from the barn, surprise clear on his face when he recognized her. "Theresa, what are you doing here? Is everything all right?" She climbed down from the wagon, her legs shaky with nerves. "Everything is fine. The wheel held perfectly. You did a good job." "Then why are you here? I thought you were going to Austin." I thought I was, but I realized something." She took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "I realized that I was still running. I was letting what Daniel did dictate my choices, letting fear make my decisions for me, and I do not want to do that anymore. Garrett stepped closer, his green eyes intent on her face. What do you want? I want to stop being afraid. I want to believe that good people exist, that not everyone will hurt me, that opening my heart is worth the risk. She met his gaze, refusing to look away even though her hands were trembling. I want to get to know you better, Garrett. I want to see if this feeling I have is real, if maybe we could be something more than a cowboy who fixed a wagon and a woman who needed help. What feeling? He asked quietly. Like I can breathe again when I am around you. Like maybe I am not broken after all, just bruised. Like trust might be possible again if it is with the right person. Garrett closed the distance between them, and Theresa's breath caught. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, and took her hand in his. His touch was warm and gentle, his calloused palm rough against her softer skin. I have been thinking about you every day since you left, he admitted. Wondering if you made it safely, hoping you found what you were looking for, wishing I had said more before you rode away. I did not think I would see you again, and that hurt more than I expected. I am here now, Theresa said. If you want me to be, I want you to be, Garrett said fervently. I want to show you that not all men are like Daniel, that your faith in people can be restored. I want to court you properly, to give you time to trust me, to prove that I mean what I say. That sounds terrifying. It is, but it also sounds worth it. Theresa smiled, a real smile that came from somewhere deep inside, from a place that had been frozen since Daniel's betrayal. Yes, it does. Garrett smiled back, and it transformed his face, making him look younger and lighter. Stay for dinner at least. Let me cook for you again, and we can talk about what happens next. I would like that. He led her into the cabin, and it felt different this time. Not like a refuge in an emergency, but like a place she might belong. They worked together to prepare the meal, moving around each other with surprising ease, and Theresa found herself laughing at something Garrett said, the sound rusty from disuse but genuine. Over dinner, they talked about everything and nothing. Garrett told her about the week she had been gone, about a cow that had gotten stuck in the creek and the struggle to free her, about the way the sunset had looked over the prairie one evening, and how he had wished she had been there to see it. Theresa told him about Caldwell, about Martha and her matchmaking comments, about the realization that had struck her like lightning one evening, that she was in the wrong place. I cannot promise this will be easy, Garrett said as they cleaned up after the meal. I am set in my ways, and ranch life is hard work. There is not much excitement out here, not much society. It is a simple life. Simple sounds perfect right now, Theresa said. I do not need excitement or society. I need honest and real. I need to know where I stand. With me, you will always know where you stand, Garrett promised. I do not play games, and I do not make promises I cannot keep. If I say something, I mean it. Then say something, Theresa challenged gently. Garrett set down the dish he was drying and turned to face her fully. I am falling for you, Theresa Calloway. I know it is fast, and I know you are still healing, but I cannot deny what I feel. You walked into my life with a broken wheel and a guarded heart, and somehow you have made me hope for things I thought I had given up on. I want to court you. I want to show you that love can be kind and honest and safe, and if you give me the chance, I want to spend the rest of my life proving that you can trust me. Tears pricked Theresa's eyes, but they were good tears, healing tears. I am falling for you too, she whispered. And that scares me more than anything ever has. But I am tired of letting fear win. So yes, I will let you court me. I will give us a chance, and we will figure out the rest as we go. Garrett reached out and cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. Can I kiss you? Yes, Theresa breathed, and then his lips were on hers, soft and warm and careful. It was nothing like the demanding kisses Daniel had pressed on her, full of expectation and entitlement. This was a question and an answer, a promise and a hope, and it made her feel cherished in a way she never had before. When they pulled apart, both breathing a little harder, Garrett rested his forehead against hers. "You can stay here tonight in the house. I will take the barn again. Or I can take you back to Caldwell if you would prefer, whatever makes you comfortable." "I want to stay," Theresa said. "Not because I have nowhere else to go, but because I want to be here, with you." "Then stay, for as long as you want." That night followed the same pattern as before, with Garrett giving her the cabin and taking himself to the barn. But this time, when Theresa bolted the door, it was not out of fear. It was just practical caution, the habit of a woman who had learned to protect herself. She climbed into Garrett's bed and pulled the quilt around her, and fell asleep smiling. The days that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm. Theresa helped around the ranch, learning the routines and discovering she enjoyed the work. She fed chickens and gathered eggs, helped Garrett mend fences, and learned to milk the cow he kept for fresh dairy. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch and watch the sunset, talking about their pasts, their hopes, their fears. Garrett was true to his word about courtship. He was respectful and patient, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. He held her hand while they walked, stole occasional kisses that left her breathless, and told her every day in word and deed that she mattered to him. Slowly, carefully, Theresa felt her walls coming down. She began to trust not just Garrett but herself, her own judgment, her ability to recognize genuine goodness when she saw it. The pain of Daniel's betrayal did not disappear, but it faded, becoming a scar rather than an open wound. One evening, about 3 weeks after she had returned to the ranch, they were sitting by the fire in the cabin. It had become their nightly ritual, sharing coffee and conversation before Garrett retired to the barn. But tonight felt different, charged with something unspoken. "Can I ask you something?" Theresa said. "Anything. Do you ever regret letting me stay, taking on the responsibility of someone else when you have been independent for so long?" Garrett set down his mug and turned to her, his green eyes serious. "Not for a single second." "You are not a responsibility, Theresa. You are a gift I did not know I was hoping for. You make this place feel like a home instead of just a house. You make me remember that life is more than just work and survival. You make me remember that I am more than my past," Theresa said softly. "That I deserve kindness and respect, that love does not have to hurt." "Love should never hurt," Garrett said firmly. "It should lift you up, make you stronger, help you become the best version of yourself." "Is that what this is?" Theresa asked, her heart pounding. "Love?" "For me, yes," Garrett said without hesitation. "I love you, Theresa. I know it has not been long, and I know you might not be ready to say it back, but I need you to know. I love your strength and your vulnerability, your determination and your gentleness. I love the way you hum while you work and the way you laugh when you are surprised. I love who I am when I am with you." Theresa felt tears streaming down her cheeks, but she was smiling through them. "I love you too," she said, the words feeling both terrifying and liberating. "I did not think I could ever say those words again, but I do. I love you, Garrett." He pulled her into his arms, holding her close, and Theresa felt something fundamental shift inside her. The broken pieces of her heart were not just healing. They were being rebuilt into something stronger, something better. "Marry me," Garrett said against her hair. Theresa pulled back to look at him. "What? Marry me? I know it is fast, and I know you might want more time, but I also know what I want. I want you to be my wife. I want to build a life with you, raise a family if we are blessed, grow old together on this land. I want to wake up next to you every morning and go to bed next to you every night. So marry me, Theresa. Please." She should say they needed more time, that they should be practical and sensible. But when had love ever been practical or sensible? And more importantly, why should she wait when she had already found what she was looking for? "Yes," she said, joy bubbling up inside her. "Yes, I will marry you." Garrett kissed her then, deep and thorough, and Theresa kissed him back with all the love and hope and gratitude she felt. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "I do not have a ring yet," he said ruefully. "I did not exactly plan this." "I do not need a ring, I just need you." "You will get a ring anyway," Garrett promised. "We will go into town tomorrow and pick one out, and then we will find a preacher and get married as soon as possible. I do not want to wait." "Neither do I," Theresa said. "I have spent too much of my life waiting for things to be perfect, for circumstances to be right. But perfect is not a moment, it is a person. And I found him." They stayed up late that night, making plans and dreaming about their future. Garrett insisted that Theresa take the bed as always, but this time he kissed her good night at the door, a lingering kiss full of promise for what was to come. The next morning, they rode into Caldwell together. The general store had a modest selection of rings, and Theresa chose a simple gold band with a small garnet stone. It was not extravagant, but it was beautiful, and when Garrett slipped it onto her finger, it felt absolutely right. They found the circuit preacher staying at the boarding house, and he agreed to perform the ceremony that very afternoon. Theresa invited Martha and her husband, the only people in town she knew beyond casual acquaintance, and they readily agreed to serve as witnesses. The ceremony took place in the small church, simple and quick, but no less meaningful for its brevity. Theresa wore her best dress, which was not fancy but was clean and pressed. Garrett wore his Sunday clothes and looked more handsome than should be legal. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Garrett kissed her with such tender joy that Theresa felt like her heart might burst. They celebrated with dinner at the boarding house, Martha insisting on treating them to a proper wedding meal. Then, as the sun set, Garrett and Theresa rode back to the ranch, this time as a married couple. "Are you nervous?" Garrett asked as they approached the house. "A little," Theresa admitted. "But it is a good nervous, excited nervous." "Me too," Garrett confessed. "I have been imagining this moment since the day you came back, but now that it is here, I want to make sure I do everything right." Theresa smiled at him, this good man who had restored her faith in love. "Just be yourself. That is all I need." He carried her over the threshold, making her laugh with the old-fashioned gesture, and set her down gently in the cabin that was now truly their home. The fire was burning low, casting warm shadows, and everything felt perfect. They came together slowly, reverently, taking their time to explore and discover each other. Garrett was patient and tender, making sure Theresa felt cherished and safe. And when they finally joined together as husband and wife, it was with a sense of rightness that brought tears to Theresa's eyes. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the bed, Theresa's head on Garrett's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I never thought I could be this happy," she whispered. "Neither did I," Garrett said, running his fingers through her loose hair. "You changed everything, Theresa. You turned a house into a home, a routine into a life worth living." "You saved me," Theresa said. "Not just my wagon, but me. You saved me from becoming bitter and closed off. You showed me that love is real, that trust is possible, that happily ever after is not just something in fairy tales." "We saved each other," Garrett corrected gently. "You gave me a reason to hope again, a reason to believe that sharing my life with someone could be a joy instead of a risk." They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, content and complete in a way neither had been before. The months that followed were the happiest of Theresa's life. She embraced ranch life with enthusiasm, learning everything Garrett could teach her about cattle and horses, about reading the weather and working the land. She started a garden near the house, growing vegetables and herbs, and began keeping bees for honey. She also started teaching reading and writing to the children of neighboring ranches, finding fulfillment in sharing knowledge. Garrett flourished with her by his side. The ranch prospered, growing from a modest operation to a thriving enterprise. He was able to hire 2 ranch hands, young men eager to learn the trade, which gave him more time to spend with Theresa. Together, they expanded the house, adding a second bedroom and a proper kitchen, making the space more suited to a growing family. Because by their first anniversary, Theresa was pregnant. She told Garrett one evening in late October, exactly a year after her wagon wheel had first broken and changed the course of her life. He was so overcome with joy that he swept her up in his arms and spun her around, laughing and crying at the same time. "We are going to be parents," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "Our child will grow up here, learning to love this land the way we do." "Our children," Theresa corrected with a smile. "I want at least 3. "We will have as many as you want," Garrett promised. "And I will love every single one of them as much as I love you." Their son was born the following June, a healthy baby boy with his father's green eyes and his mother's determined chin. They named him Thomas William Coleman, after Theresa's father and Garrett's father, honoring the men who had shaped them. Holding her son for the first time, Theresa marveled at how much her life had changed. 2 years ago, she had been broken and bitter, convinced that love was a lie and that trusting anyone was foolish. Now she was a wife and mother, surrounded by love and security, with a husband who cherished her and a future full of promise. Garrett was an excellent father, patient and loving, taking to parenthood with the same dedication he brought to everything else. He would carry Thomas around the ranch, pointing out cattle and horses, telling the baby stories about the land and their family, even though Thomas was too young to understand. When Thomas was 18 months old, Theresa discovered she was pregnant again. This time, they were blessed with twins, a boy and a girl. They named them Daniel and Grace, and Garrett joked that they now had the 3 children Theresa had wanted all at once. Life became beautifully chaotic with 3 children under the age of 3. The house rang with laughter and crying, with the sounds of childhood that transformed the space completely. Theresa was tired constantly but deliriously happy, watching her children grow and thrive under the wide Texas sky. Garrett proved himself time and again to be nothing like Daniel Patterson. He was present and involved, changing diapers and soothing fevers, playing games and telling stories. He treated Theresa as an equal partner in all things, valuing her opinions and respecting her choices. Their marriage deepened and strengthened with each passing year, built on a foundation of trust and genuine affection. On their 5th anniversary, Garrett surprised Theresa with a gift. He led her out to the barn and showed her a brand new wagon, sturdier and better built than the one she had arrived in, with wheels that would never break down. "I do not understand," Theresa said, running her hand along the smooth wood. "The wagon that brought you to me broke," Garrett explained. At the time, it seemed like a disaster, but looking back, it was the best thing that could have happened. That broken wheel gave me the love of my life. This new wagon is a reminder that sometimes what seems like an ending is really a beginning. Theresa hugged him tightly, overwhelmed with emotion. "I love you so much. You know that, right?" "I know. And I love you too, more than I can ever fully express." "You express it every day," Theresa said, "in how you treat me, how you father our children, how you build this life we share." "You fixed more than my wagon wheel, Garrett. You fixed my faith in men, in love, in the goodness of people. You gave me hope when I had none left. You did the same for me, Garrett said. We healed each other. They stood there in the barn, holding each other as the sun set outside, their children's laughter drifting from the house where a neighbor was watching them for the evening. Everything they had built together, everything they had overcome, felt present in that moment. As the years continued to pass, the Circle C Ranch grew and prospered. Thomas grew into a responsible young man who loved the land as much as his father did. Daniel developed a gift for working with horses, gentling even the most difficult animals with patience and skill. Grace became the heart of the family, keeping everyone together with her sunny disposition and practical wisdom. When Thomas turned 18, he told his parents he wanted to continue the family legacy, to run the ranch alongside his father and eventually take it over. Garrett and Theresa could not have been prouder. They watched their children grow and start families of their own, blessing them with grandchildren who filled the house with new life and energy. The ranch expanded to accommodate the growing family, with new houses built for Thomas and later for Daniel when he married a sweet girl from town. Grace chose a different path, becoming a teacher in Caldwell and eventually marrying the circuit preacher who took over when the original one retired. But she visited often, bringing her own children to run wild on the ranch just as she had done. Garrett and Theresa grew old together, their hair turning silver, their hands becoming gnarled with age and work. But their love never diminished. If anything, it grew stronger, deepened by decades of shared experiences, weathered storms, celebrated triumphs, and quiet moments of contentment. On their 40th anniversary, the whole family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. 3 generations filled the house and yard, proof of the love that had started with a broken wagon wheel and a cowboy's kindness. That evening, after the party had wound down and the guests had departed, Garrett and Theresa sat on the porch in their rocking chairs, holding hands as they watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "You remember the day we met?" Theresa asked, her voice still clear despite her years. "Every detail," Garrett said. "You stood there with that pistol, looking fierce and scared at the same time. I knew right then that you were special, that helping you meant something more than just fixing a wheel." "I was so certain all men were terrible," Theresa said with a soft laugh. "I had decided to close my heart forever. Then you came along and proved me wrong with every word and action." "I am glad your wagon broke," Garrett said. "So am I. It brought me home." She squeezed his hand. "You are my home, Garrett. You always have been." "And you are mine," he said, bringing her hand to his lips and kissing it gently. "From that first day to this one and every day between, you are my home, my heart, my everything." They sat there as the sun disappeared below the horizon, 2 people who had found each other in the vast wilderness and built a love that lasted a lifetime. The broken wagon wheel that had seemed like such a disaster had actually been a gift, bringing them together when they both needed healing. Theresa Coleman had left Newton broken and bitter, convinced that love was a fool's game. She had found instead that love was the bravest thing a person could do, the greatest risk that came with the greatest reward. Garrett had not just fixed her wagon wheel. He had fixed her faith in men, in love, in the possibility of happily ever after. And as the stars emerged one by one in the darkening sky, she knew without a doubt that she had found exactly what she had been searching for, even when she had not known she was searching at all. She had found home, love, family, and faith, all wrapped up in the form of a kind cowboy with green eyes and a generous heart. Their story, which had begun with a break, had transformed into something whole and beautiful, a testament to the healing power of love and the courage it takes to trust again. And as they rocked gently on the porch of the house they had built together, surrounded by the legacy of their love, both Garrett and Theresa knew they had lived a life worth living, full of all the things that truly mattered. The ranch would continue for generations, passed down through their children and their children's children. But more than land and cattle, they were passing down a story about a broken wagon, a kind cowboy, and a woman who learned to trust again. A story about how sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes, how courage can bloom even from pain, and how love, when it is real and true, can heal anything. As night settled fully over the Texas plains, Garrett and Theresa went inside their home, still hand in hand after 40 years of marriage. They had built something beautiful from something broken, and that, they both knew, was the greatest achievement of all.